Because nobody's like you.
Kathleen suggested that I give this speech today on vocal variety because of my acting and theater background. And when she suggested it, I jumped at the chance. I immediately said yes. And it wasn't until I sat down and started preparing it that I really began to wonder what I had gotten myself into. Which means, of course, this has been a very, very good exercise for me. So thank you for the suggestion. So I remember reading in one of the Toastmasters manuals when I first got involved with this, that a strong suggestion is that you formulate your speech topics around something that you're passionate about. Now, as a thespian and an authentic performance acting teacher, I could not agree with that statement more, which is why I put it at the top of the 5 suggestions that I'm going to talk to you about today, for bringing vocal variety and emotional expressivity, which is expressing yourself emotionally, into your speeches. So number 1 is to choose topics that you are passionate about. Number 2, use personal examples. Number 3, as much as possible, focus on your audience rather than on yourself. Number 4, read aloud your first draft and make edits based on your own personal reaction to what you've written. And number 5, when you're rehearsing at home, get up, stand up, move around, and put emotion into it while you're rehearsing, because that's what you're going to be doing up here, so you might as well do it at home. And you might want to think about wearing the shoes that you're going to wear too, just in case you aren't familiar with those shoes. So that's a big acting tip, let me tell you. We rehearse in our costumes, in our shoes. So those are my 5 tips. And you know, the truth of the matter is it's not easy getting up here even with an acting background. I mean, this requires vulnerability. You know, you're sharing a little piece of yourself with people you may not know very well, and you have no way of anticipating what the reaction is going to be. Now, I am going to get vulnerable with you today. I'm going to share a story from my own life that brings up a myriad of emotions. Okay? I mean, I figured that would be a really good way to demonstrate vocal variety, right? You know, share something that brings up some emotion. But before we get to that point, let's focus just a little bit more on number 3. This is something we talked about in one of my acting classes not long ago. See, the thing is, when you're up here, and you're all worried about, oh my God, I'm so nervous, I'm going to forget my lines, I'm going to screw up, oh my God, who's in the audience today? What are they going to think about me? What are they going to think about of all this? You're being selfish. Sounds a little harsh, huh? I thought so the first time I heard it from an acting teacher, but I got it. I knew what she was saying. Because that kind of thought process is all about me, rather than what I can share from here, right? With you and you and you and you in my audience. So, with that, let's go back to 2010, 5 years ago. At that stage in my life, I was working at a claims job that I hated. And at the same time, I was going through apprentice teacher training with the Transformational Voice Institute, which I loved. And there came a point where I had to make a choice between the two. Now, 2010, I had gone through a divorce just a few years previously. I had uprooted my entire life and moved from Salem to Lake Oswego. I had gotten back into a traditional job with health insurance benefits for the first time in a decade. My financial life was in a ruin. I had no money in the bank. And 2010, the economy had tanked. Nobody was hiring. People were laying off left and right. 2 of my very best friends, very competent, experienced employees, had been laid off and were jobless. And my supervisor pulls me into the conference room one day and says with a very warm heart, you know, Laura, I know how much you love that vocal training, and let's face it, we all hate this job. But you know you're going to have to make a choice. You can't continue to do both. See, I was using my PTO to go to the apprenticeship meetings on Fridays. So I basically said I wasn't going to get sick or take vacation for a year and a half. And my work product was suffering so badly. And she said, that day you have to make a choice. I was scared. So I left the building. I do what I often do when I'm in a situation like this, and I went on a walk, what I call God walk. And I walked down the sidewalk. I got to the stoplight, and it was red. And I said, either here or out loud, I don't remember, I said, if I am going to quit my job in this economy without having another one, I want a sign, you know, like that. And I was very clear. And so the light turned green, and I crossed the street, and there came Paul running towards me. Now, Paul and I worked together at Safe Corporation back in the 90s. It wasn't unusual that I saw him. He runs, I walk. We would see each other, we'd smile and wave, we'd say hi. But that day, he stopped running. And he asked me for my resume. Half a block later, after I had asked for a sign, a man comes running up to me and he asked me for my resume. I mean, seriously. If that's not an answer to a sign, I don't know what is. Yes, true story. So, yes, I put in my notice, a long-term notice, like 3 months out, going, oh my God, please let me have a job before my last day. And I didn't. So I left. And that was a really scary 4.5-month period of my life, let me tell you. I had to move. I found a temporary room for $600 a month. I literally, physically relied on the moving sale to pay my first month's rent. And there were times, I mean literally, there were times I did not know how I was going to put gas in my car. And I remember one particular day, because I had been invited to a Free to Be meeting. It was a women's empowerment group, kind of a spiritual group that we got together Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock. And I could suddenly go because I didn't have to be at the office. And these women, I'm telling you, they saved my life, at least my sanity, during this really scary period. And that one day where I didn't know how I was going to put gas in my car, see, what I didn't know was that Julianne had called all of the other women ahead of time. And she said, Laura's in a little bit of trouble. Would you bring the cash that you have on hand? And I'm going to pass a hat. And I walked out of that meeting that day, I am not kidding you, with $63 in my pocket. And at that time, that was a lot of money. I put gas in my car, I brought groceries. I smoked at the time, I bought a pack of cigarettes. But see, this is the deal, is things like that happened repeatedly during this period, all the time. I couldn't believe how money would just show up. It was uncanny. And when the job offer came in, it came in at $13,500 a year, more than I was making at that crappy job. And I was there for 4 years, and I saved a lot of money, and when I left, it was on great terms. And it ended up being a really great year. For that 4.5 months, I didn't know that. So, I hope that my personal story has showed the emphasis on choosing topics that you're passionate about. I am passionate about following your dreams, okay? Of using personal examples. I did my best to focus on you, my audience, rather than my nerves up here. And so that leaves us with 2 more, and that is to read aloud. After you prepare this draft, some may talk it out, I sit down at my computer, read it out loud. If you're laughing really hard, your audience probably will too. If you find a phrase uncomfortable, impertinent, you can't get any emotion behind it, your audience is going to pick up on that too. And then stand up, move around, get some emotion behind it when you're rehearsing, because it makes it much, much easier when you get up here. And do it like you have an audience, or bring in an audience. Your partner, your spouse, your children, your dog. My cat, Lady Jane, has heard all of my speeches before you have. She's a very good audience. Now, these 5 tips should bring more emotional depth, more heartfeltness into your speeches. They should be not boring, and it should bring a personal piece of you into your speech. And I know that's what I want to hear from all of you. So thank you.
Because nobody's like you.